Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. It is Tuesday, November 4th. Got a very special date numerology going on today that coincides with the date perfectly. Before we get into that, I want to talk about yesterday, though. Yesterday was November 3rd, and there were quite a few headlines I want to show you. So let's start with the Costa Concordia. Very curious headlines. The Costa Concordia is the giant cruise ship that crashed January 13th, 2012. That was a Friday the 13th. First Friday the 13th of the year 2012. Look at the dates, 11/3 and January 13th. Do you see the 113 sequence in both dates? Yesterday, it is said that the final body was recovered from the ship. That was the body of a 33-year-old named Russell Rebello, who was said to be the hero. He's also said to be Indian. The gematria of the name Russell is 22, 33 for Rebello. And also look at Russell, how it has that 311 coded into it. It also has 93 at the front. The boat Titanic that crashed in 1912, 100 years earlier, ended with IC. Those letters form 93 as well. And why that's interesting is because the Titanic was written about 14 years before it crashed in 1898, but the book was referred to as the Titan. It's about a boat just like the Titanic that crashes on an iceberg in April, traveling the same route that the Titanic actually crashed on. And that's just one of many examples from history that foreshadows events that came years after the fact that they are written about. And in the case of the Titanic, the story when we're never told about how 4 of the world's richest men died on that boat that day. They always leave out that part of the story, and it's got to make you wonder. Because imagine if like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, George Soros, and whoever else you want to throw in there died in a plane crash or a boat cruise. Don't you think that would be a curious event? Okay, moving on. Also yesterday, the One World Trade Center opened. Yesterday's date numerology was also 28. You get that by doing 11 plus 3 plus 14 for the date November 3rd, 14th. That's curious to me because the World Trade Center building complex opened April 4th, 1973, which means it was open for 28 years before it came crashing to the ground. 28 represents the full cycle in numerology because the sun's solar cycle is 28 years. That's why February has 28 days in it. All right. Also yesterday from the headlines, it said that a sign was stolen from the Dashu Gate in Germany from the Holocaust. That gate and structure was built in the year 1933. It's important to note that the gematria of the word Holocaust sums to 33. Hitler came to power in 33. The majority of those said to have died from the Holocaust are said to have been killed with the gas from Zyklon B. The gematria of Zyklon B is also 33. Should be noted that the word rhyme sums to 33, and the only word that you can't rhyme is orange. It also sums to 33. Anyhow, the sign is in German, but in English it translates to work sets you free, which has to make you grin, right? Work sets you free. Does that sound like a Nazi slogan? Or essentially the slogan of the world system we live in? The old world order, new world order, whatever you want to call it. Work sets you free. That's what we all are, a bunch of working slaves. But none of us are really free. Also from yesterday's headlines, ISIS killed 322 people. This is how it's being reported in the mainstream media. 322, that number comes from Yale Skull and Bones. It traces back into our nation's history, to our identity. The leader of the movement that killed 322 people, including women and children, they like to put in these really horrific details. His name's Sheikh Nabil al-Gaoud. I believe Gaoud. Don't quote me. Could be misspeaking, but look at the gematria of it. 33, of course. They've been coding this all throughout the ISIS stories. Nabil, 20. The whole thing sums to 78. If you watch my video on the rocket explosions and the Spaceship Two crash, I showed you how they've even been trying to code that number into those stories. And that's what they do. They go in these cycles of coding numbers. 78 becomes 7 plus 8 is 15. 1 plus 5 is 6, so it's a 6 number as well, just like 33. So, yeah, you just see these patterns. Also yesterday, Tom Magliozzi from Card Talk of NPR is said to have died at 77 years old. Card Talk in Gematria sums to 66. He is survived by his brother Ray. Curious Gematria of 44. Just makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes. His brother Ray says he died of natural causes. Now, as for today's date numerology, it's quite interesting. It is November 4th, 11-4. 11-4 is often associated with assassinations and killings. Same with 411. 4 times 11 and 11 times 4 is 44. The word kill sums to 44 in Gematria. 11 plus 9 plus 12 plus 12. K plus I plus L plus L. Anyway, there's 2 ways to get the date numerology for today. You can write 11/4/4 and add it up. That sums to 29. 29 is the first number with a numerology of 11 because 2 plus 9 equals 11. Master number 11. The other way to do the date is write it out the full way, 11/4/2014. Then add it all up as single digits. In this way, it sums to 13, and then 1 plus 3 equals 4. So the 2 date numerologies for today sum to 11-4, plus today's date is 11-4. So that is a lot of numbers falling in place. And it also happens to be voting day, and it also happens to be a Tuesday, a day of tragedy in history. With regards to yesterday's headlines, I saw Joe Biden's face a lot in mainstream printing with tough headlines, and I feel like that's foreshadowing for what's coming to our 44th president, Barack Hussein Obama, and Joe Biden is currently the 47th vice president. Should be noted that the word president also sums to 47 in Gematria. Joe Biden's the 47th vice president. Are you seeing? All right, I also want to show you this. Donna Brazile, who's always on the TV talking about political matters, is weighing in her knowledge on what she thinks is going to happen at the elections tonight. I'm going to let you listen to Donna Brazile speak. Maybe some of you guys like Donna Brazile and think she's a nice, friendly face, honest message. I'm going to show you how this all really works. Because what I've been asking for decades is, why are these people continually on the TV giving me information? I know this stuff's all a bunch of lies, so who are these people really and why are they here? Well, I have something to show you, but let's watch her speak first about tonight's election.
I think Jean Shaheen, Scott Brown, who found another state to run in for the United States Senate, she's run an incredible campaign. People know her. They love her as a governor, of course. This is a very unfavorable political year for the Democrats because we're defending more seats than the Republicans. That said, I think North Carolina is still going to break in Kay Hagan's favor, and I think Jean Shaheen will pull out a nail biter.
Nice measure.
She thinks Jean Shaheen's going to pull out a nail biter. Well, I've had my eyes on the Jean Shaheen-Scott Brown election. Really, they're all just like this, but this one's just so obvious. First, they got the headlines because they talked about Ebola and ISIS so much. Yesterday's headlines were all about, is the election going to come down to Ebola and ISIS? I mean, just think about how stupid we are as a country if we're fooled by that. Why are we voting on ISIS and Ebola? These are issues that just came up in the last 2 months. What about everything else happening in the world? I mean, it's just so easy to see what's going on in America, people. There's nothing hard to see about this. I don't know how anyone's fooled by this. The reason they're fooled is because they want to be fooled. And that's the difference between you and the people who make fun of you for believing in and thinking about conspiracy. They're making fun of you because they're fools. So remember that. If you're scared and intimidated by these people because they outnumber you, just see them as a sea of fools. That's how I've always seen them. That's why it's so easy for me to speak to them. And usually when I speak, they bow down. Or I shouldn't say bow down, but they back off. Because they realize they've crossed somebody who isn't a fool. So anyway, let's talk about Jean Shaheen. Let's look at her name gematria. Look at all those 5s at the end. 3 5s in a row. 1-8-1-8. 5-5-5. It sums to 33. It should be noted that Shaheen is a real name. I know a very nice Shaheen. She's a beautiful Indian girl. So it is a real name, but you don't typically see it in white women. Jean Shaheen. No, this is just another coded agent, and if you watched their debate, Scott Brown versus Jean Shaheen, they hardly seem like human beings to me. I mean, I don't know if they're under MK Ultra, which also sums to 33, or what. But, you know, These aren't normal people. The name Scott sums to 77, another number they love, Scott. So yeah, you guys, I mean, this is how it is. This is why she can predict it's going to be a nail biter. Let's watch the Jean Shaheen Scott Brown outcome. It doesn't matter who wins. They're both agents of the same thing. But Donna Brazil, she probably does have the inside knowledge. And we got to wake up. I mean, if you guys are going out to vote today, if any of you are watching this and voting, you don't get it. You need to wake up more. If you're voting, you're supporting the oppression. That's what this is. This is all a big show. And by going out and voting and participating, you're validating the big show. What would they do if nobody went out and voted? What would they do? That's what we need to do. We need to force them to do things that are outside of their operating system. They have us working within their system. We need to make them work outside of their system. Then they'll be further exposed. So if you're someone who votes, if you're someone who goes and shops at big box stores because it's cheaper and you don't have any money, guess what? You're part of the problem. You need to buy less stuff. I've been poor too, but I don't shop at these big box stores. I just spend less money. I save up and buy better food and eat less. You know? These are the types of things we have to start doing. Not voting, eating better, speaking out. If everyone was like me, we'd be free. And that's the truth. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but it's true. And that's the message.